deep beneath the overworld where sunlight had never touched stone and the only sounds were the distant groans of zombies echoing through endless caverns. A lone miner named Kael swung his diamond pickaxe with mechanical precision. He had been down here for 3 days straight, following a vein of redstone that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. What started as a simple mining expedition had become something far more mysterious. Kael was no ordinary adventurer. While other players built magnificent castles and sprawling farms, he preferred the solitude of the underground. His stone shelter above ground was modest, just 4 walls, a bed, and a crafting table. But down here, in the labyrinthine tunnels he had carved over months of exploration, he felt truly at home. The redstone vein led him deeper than he had ever ventured before. The familiar gray cobblestone gave way to darker materials, and soon Kael found himself breaking through walls of obsidian. This was unusual. Obsidian typically formed where water met lava, but there was no trace of either element in these depths. The black volcanic glass seemed to have grown naturally from the earth itself, forming intricate patterns that almost resembled ancient runes. As his pickaxe struck the obsidian, sparks flew in colors Kael had never seen before, deep purples and electric blues that danced in the darkness before fading away. Each strike sent vibrations through the stone that felt like a heartbeat, slow and rhythmic. The more he mined, the more convinced he became that something was waiting for him on the other side. After hours of careful excavation, Kael finally broke through into a vast underground chamber. His torch illuminated only a small portion of the space, but what he could see took his breath away. The entire cavern was lined with polished obsidian that reflected his torchlight like a hall of mirrors. In the center of the chamber stood a structure unlike anything he had encountered in all his years of exploration. It was a perfect circle of obsidian blocks, each one carved with symbols that seemed to shift and writhe in the flickering light. At the center of the circle sat a single block of what appeared to be pure diamond, but it pulsed with an inner light that diamonds simply didn't possess. As Kael approached, he noticed that the air itself seemed thicker here, charged with an energy that made his tools hum softly in his inventory. The moment Kael stepped into the circle, the world around him began to change. The obsidian walls started to glow with a soft purple light, and the symbols on the blocks beneath his feet began to spin slowly, as if they were gears in some ancient machine. The diamond block at the center rose from the ground, floating at eye level and rotating gently. Kael realized he was looking not at a diamond, but at some kind of crystalline portal. Through the crystal's faceted surface, Kael could see fragments of other worlds. There was a snow-covered village, where villagers moved about their daily routines, unaware they were being watched. There was a desert temple partially buried in sand, with something dark moving in its shadows. Most disturbing of all, there was what appeared to be his own underground base. But everything was wrong. The walls were made of netherrack instead of stone, and strange creatures with glowing red eyes wandered his carefully crafted tunnels. As Kael stared into the crystal, he began to understand what he had discovered. This wasn't just a portal. It was a window into alternate versions of his world, places where different choices had led to dramatically different outcomes. The obsidian chamber was some kind of nexus point, a place where multiple realities converged. But Kael's wonder quickly turned to horror as he noticed movement in his peripheral vision. The reflections in the obsidian walls were no longer showing his own image. Instead, he saw dozens of other versions of himself, each one slightly different. Some wore different armor, others carried different tools, and a few looked as if they had been corrupted by extended exposure to the nether. They were all staring back at him, with expressions of desperate hunger. The truth hit Kael like a cave-in. He wasn't the first version of himself to find this place. The chamber was a trap, designed to lure explorers from across multiple realities. Each reflection in the walls was another Kael who had made the same discovery, and they had all been imprisoned here, forced to watch as new versions of themselves fell into the same trap. The floating crystal began to pulse faster, and Kael felt a pulling sensation, as if invisible hands were trying to drag him into one of the obsidian mirrors. He realized that if he didn't act quickly, he would become just another reflection, trapped forever in this interdimensional prison. Thinking quickly, Kael pulled out his most precious possession, a single block of TNT he had been saving for a special mining project. The explosive might collapse the entire chamber, but it was his only chance to escape before the portal's pull became too strong to resist. As he placed the TNT next to the floating crystal and lit it with his flint and steel, the reflections in the walls began to scream silently, their mouths open in warning, or perhaps encouragement. The explosion was unlike anything Kael had ever experienced. Instead of the familiar orange flames and gray smoke, the TNT detonated in a burst of purple energy that seemed to tear reality itself. The obsidian mirrors shattered simultaneously, releasing what sounded like the collective sighs of 1,000 trapped souls. The floating crystal cracked down the middle and fell to the ground in two perfect halves. As the chamber collapsed around him, Kael felt himself being pulled upward by an invisible force. He rocketed through layers of stone and earth, his body somehow passing through solid matter as if he were made of light. When the sensation finally stopped, he found himself standing in a familiar place, his own underground base, exactly as he had left it. But something was different. Where the tunnel leading to the obsidian chamber had been, there was now only solid stone, as if it had never been excavated at all. The only evidence of his incredible journey was a small shard of crystal that had somehow remained in his inventory, pulsing faintly with purple light. Kael carefully placed the crystal shard in a chest and sealed it away. Some mysteries, he realized, were better left unsolved. He had glimpsed the infinite complexity of existence itself, and barely escaped with his sanity intact. From that day forward, he stuck to mining diamonds and coal, leaving the deeper mysteries of his world to braver souls than himself. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled through his modest stone shelter, Kael would take out the crystal shard and wonder about all those other versions of himself, still out there somewhere, making different choices and living different lives. The multiverse was vast and strange, and he had learned to be grateful for the simple reality he called home. In the depths below, the obsidian chamber remained buried, waiting patiently for the next curious soul to dig just a little too deep.